Welcome to Hawksong Weaving. My name is Took. I'm a disabled weaver who works exclusively with thrift store or secondhand yarn, and today I'll be working on an easy beginning project on a Rigid Heddle Loom, talking about some of the pitfalls that first-time weavers can experience, and being a hypocrite about telling other people to take care of their physical needs when I often ignore mine.
Life takes odd turns, but even tattered and worn yarn still has value. Tired joints and health flares don't have to stop the journey. Welcome to Hawksong Weaving, where all our paths are a little bit warped.
First off, yarn. As a more experienced weaver on a Rigid Heddle Loom who has made a bunch of mistakes as a beginning weaver, I beg you, oh beginning weavers looking at this video, to start out with acrylic yarn. Yes, this yarn gets a bad rap. It's not as fun as the new wool, it's not as shiny, it's not as special, but we've all encountered it at thrift stores and big box stores. It's the not as nice Red Heart store brand acrylic boring yarn. But it warps beautifully. It's acrylic, so it's the same tension throughout. It's not too fuzzy, so it won't catch on itself, but at the same time, it's fuzzy enough that it provides a really good grip for a just learning weaver. I really recommend these yarn skeins for beginning weavers. They're solid, they'll last forever, and they're cheap. So often beginning weavers are terrified of mucking something up. This yarn reduces a lot of that. And they're commonly found yarn at the thrift store as a bag of wonder, or the bag full of tiny yarn balls that are clearly the offcuts or the leftovers for larger projects. These yarn bags are fantastic for this type of easy table runner project. The cheaper acrylic yarns are also really great for learning the adaptive warping method that I use. I have hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which has cascaded into postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome. So for time's sake, know that I have joints that don't work, and if I shift positions too quickly, I get pre-syncope or pre-fainting symptoms. All of this comes with chronic pain, so for a lot of reasons, a traditional warping board doesn't work for me, along with being really expensive and taking up a lot of space in my small studio. So I use an accordion coat rack as my warping board. It's nice and neat, it contracts down into a nice smaller space, and I can adjust it as I need to. And I don't need to be up and down and all around and having tachycardia, or racing heart, that stresses out my medical alert cat Penelope Calico. With the warp threads sorted, I'm lifting up the loom to release the warping board from the loom, gathering the warp threads into one large bundle and using the back of my neck to drape them over and keep them tidy and out of the way, while I collapse the warping board and get it tucked out of the way until I'm at a full pause point where I can get it unclamped from my desk and put away. I use terry cloth towels to cushion the warp threads. This helps prevent the finished weaving from being tighter at the ends and looser in the middle, creating a sort of sausage profile in the weaving. The way I warp has me cutting the warp loops at the end of winding the warp. This is what's easiest on my body, but it won't work for everyone, and that's okay. This isn't a great angle, but I'm being careful to pay attention to how the warp threads are lying on the back bar of the loom, and the right hand thread goes through the smaller hole in the Rigid Heddle reed. It's not critical, and some minor mistakes aren't the end of the world, but it does make it easier to keep the tension of the warp threads even across the entire weaving, especially when working with a double ply warp. As I do this, I'm noting that my scissors definitely need to be sharpened. You'll note me pausing and drinking some water throughout this. Yes, I was having some pre-syncope symptoms, and I should have stopped at this point and gone on to actually take care of my body and take a break, but I am a hypocrite. This is a do as I say, not as I do situation. I was absolutely recognizing that my body needed a break, but I was being stubborn, and I don't recommend being stubborn in this. You'll see me pausing a couple times, and yep, there I am, deciding it's time to go take a break and get some food. Yes, it was easier for me to accept taking a break, knowing that I'd be recommending everyone else take a break and actually feel free to do their body needs and all that jazz. It's hard. I don't like doing it. Also, if you're chronically ill and dealing with, fatigue and stuff, I recommend sorted food as a way of like, okay, I'm learning how to cook better meals while I'm sitting and resting. It's a way of like tricking your brain into thinking it's being productive, which it is. It is always useful to learn a new skill. And back to getting the Rigid Heddle all warped and ready to go for the actual weaving part. I'd like to thank you for watching. If you'd like to support my work, some free ways to do that are to like, comment, and subscribe or follow, and share. This applies to other small artists as well. It's a great way to let the social media algorithms know that this is content worth watching. If you'd like to support me financially per viewer request, there's a Buy Me a Coffee linked below, along with the link to the Hawksong Weaving Square site where you can purchase unique woven products. I also now have a Patreon that's linked below as well. There are currently 4 actual tiers and 1 very silly tier. These tiers include early access to videos, a weekly post of life of the HR and OSHA cats, a Kvetchy diary, being able to vote on projects, and fun snail mail. The actual tiers range from $2, $5, $10, and $15. The 5th tier is absolutely a joke, but just in case, in this economy, I won't say no. For $1,000 a month, you can tell me that I'm not actually disabled, I'm just lazy, and to try whatever yoga, juice cleanse, snake oil nonsense fixed your cousin. Attaching the warp to the bottom apron bar is pretty easy. I finger comb it, get it separated into bits about 4 to 5 warp threads wide, separate these bits into 2, and then do a half hitch tie to the apron bar. For a table runner, I want a nice size fringe, but not too long, so I'm sort of eyeing how long I would want the fringe to be, and making sure that it looks nice. A lot of this is by eye, but it's really, really hard to mess up, especially with the acrylic, which is part of why I recommend this project for beginning weavers. Using my thumb to keep it stuck, and just separating around the back and wrapping around, giving it a nice tie. And like a lot of weaving, it's the same motions over and over and over again, so inevitably you'll be able to do this even if you're really brain fogged, which is the only reason I'm able to do this as consistently as I am for a business, because oh boy is my brain not liking the humidity this summer. Again, with a terry cloth to help it not be as kvetchy, loosening up the tension so that I can wrap it around the bottom apron bar, and just it helps prevent the sausage profile on this end of the weaving as well. It gives it a nice cushion. its joints are in pain too, and it's less fun when joints are in pain, so nice cushions. I love cushions. Chronic illness sucks. Again, this is why I recommend acrylic yarn for starting out weavers, especially when you're learning what tension you prefer to weave at. I prefer to weave at a fairly high tension, and acrylic yarn can just handle that in a way that the nicer wools can't. Another tip for beginning weavers is that when you're winding your shuttle, try to do a sort of crisscross X rather than just straight wrapping around the middle. You're able to get a lot more yarn on your shuttle, and it's just, in general, creates a more, even less bulky glide through the shed of your warp. For this project, I wanted something with a bit of symbolism, so I'm doing a project based on my experiences with my friends at this one farm where we're slowly building up our pantries and making pickles and drying herbs and making jams as a way of providing for our families and our households, because we're not able to work traditional 9-to-5 jobs because of various disabilities, but we can provide in other ways, and some of us can work part-time, but like figuring things out, and figuring out ways to contribute to the household finances and the household food without, but it's depressing, it's sad. So starting with a black for both the rich soil and the depression that all of us have experienced, and moving on towards green things and blue skies. My studio is currently a bit of a mess. Please ignore the boxes and wires in the background. Something I get complimented on by a lot of other weavers when I'm at an arts market are my salvages. And salvages can be really tricky for beginning weavers, and I genuinely wonder why that is sometimes, but mostly I think it's because we're worried about how tight the yarn is going to be, whether or not we're doing it right, and we get in our own heads. A simple thing that I used to make my salvages the way that they are, the nice and neat as they are, is I to the shuttle through at like a 45-degree diagonal angle, pinch along the side, and then press down. That makes sure that there's enough room for the yarn to breathe and fully catch onto things. There's probably better ways to explain it, but it's humid today as I'm narrating this and my brain is a bit of a mush. So I'm just gonna show on the screen that 45-degree angle, that pinch on the end, and just do that, and things should be working just fine. This does shift as you're using different gauges of wool, different wool percentages, because as you block those, they will shrink at different rates, but for the most part, 45-degree, pinch, and just slide on home. And of course, we've got Hades Himbo, who's checking in on me. It's like, Dad, are you being careful? Are you resting? It's like, yes, baby, I'm doing just fine. Pinky promise. Now tying off the table runner fringes, I prefer to do a 2x2 of warp and tied into a fringe of 4, but if I didn't put on enough warp, I'll do 2 fringes of 3 with a double knot at the end. Unrolling on the other side and doing the same exact thing. I eyeball the length of the fringe that I want and use the don't ask me how much I spent on these good shears and trim it. The final step is between half an hour and 45 minutes of tying the fringe knots. This is less necessary when it's acrylic yarn, but it does add a nice finish edge to your project, and it's something that it looks nice, it looks more finished, it looks neater. So this is what I do for my projects and my products. The scraps of these projects are fantastic for stuffing. Give them a loose mince, for lack of a better term, with your scissors, and they're great to go into other projects. And that way your work can be zero waste and nothing goes into a landfill. These projects make really good gifts as well. They're machine washable because they're acrylic. They can stand up to toddlers and pretty much every day-to-day life wear and tear. A lot of the really nice fabric, the really nice hand-woven fabric isn't feasible for folks these days because it requires too much maintenance and too much upkeep. And folks want to have nice things in their homes. And this is a great gift, and it can be really color matched to the person you're weaving it for. It's a great gift for a new parent who might want nice things but does not want to risk a toddler being a toddler around them. So it's a good all-around option. Thank you for coming along as I wove and said do as I say, not as I do for this table runner. I'm so glad for the odd turn that your path took that brought you here. Thank you for spending time with me at Hawksong Weaving, where we're all a bit warped, and I hope that you have a truly excellent week.